in terms of me as a person, because I think it's important to understand the person who's speaking to you. I'm 36 years of age, which I don't think is particularly old, but I've just retired a few months ago. I played my last game for Wasps in May. I played for London Wasps, it was my only club. I played there for 18 years. And I was fortunate enough in those 18 years to play international rugby for the best part of 12 years for England. I was born in, I mean, obviously in that time, you know, in that 18 years, there's going to be some amazing highs and inevitably some amazing, inevitably some big lows. And talking of lows, I was born in Shepherd's Bush, which is not far from here. Not exactly a hotbed of English rugby, I hear you say. It's a pretty rough place to grow up. I didn't stay there too long, but it was twinned with Bosnia, actually. And if I'm honest, the Bosnians weren't too happy about it. But when we played at Loftus Road in Shepherd's Bush, and the one thing you could guarantee, or you couldn't guarantee, was the same four wheels you arrived on. But my father was Italian. He was an immigrant. He came into this country when he was 22. My mother was from the East End of London. She was born into a family of 10 children, worked exceptionally hard. And the reason I mention this is because I think it's important for us as individuals, for me and for all of us, to understand who we are and where we come from. And I think if you want to unlock your potential as a person and as an individual, I think that's key in terms of where you want to go. You have to look at yourself, understand who you are and where you've come from. The question I get asked quite a lot is, why did I join London Wasps? And how the hell did I manage to stay there for 18 years, or nearly 20 years? And I think I start by going back to my parents. My mother was an incredibly supportive person, and you know, I was very lucky in that respect. Both parents were, but particularly my mother, incredibly supportive. She used to sort of, you know, have that driven ambition to make sure I got out of bed, you know, really had a purpose in life. She used to say to me, shoot for the moon and you'll be amongst the stars. I'm sure many of you have heard that, but for me that was very relevant. You know, go for it, you know, don't hold back, be ambitious, think big, be positive. And I think that as an individual, you know, kind of shapes, you know, can shape your life. When I left school, I wanted to join a rugby club. I wasn't sure where I was going to go. I wasn't particularly good at rugby at school. I ended up, I didn't play for the first 15. I only made the second 15, which is slightly embarrassing. But when I left school, I opened the newspapers and I thought, right, where am I going to go? And I remember at the time, the league tables, it was in 1988, 89, and I looked at the newspaper, and Wasps happened to be the club at the top of the table. And I thought to myself, that's where I want to go. And I called it at the time what I called getting the edge, because, you know, I wanted to position myself in the best place, you know, and I wasn't prepared to settle for second best. Now, fortunately, Wasps also happened to be in London. It's quite an interesting journey for me, because when I got on the tube at Hammersmith, I got off at Sudbury Town, which is where Wasps was, and the first four people I asked didn't even speak English, let alone understand, you know, what Wasps, you know, what the stadium was. And I arrived there, and I was quite surprised, because there was only a couple of pitches, and I come from a school that had probably a few more than that. But it was a very friendly place to be, and more importantly, it was a team that was top of the league table. So from 1990 to about 2008, I had a wonderful, enjoyable, and ultimately a very successful career. But it's always worth bearing in mind that success is relative and often subject to timing and circumstance. And good fortune is something that largely is out of our control. But the one thing that I can say is that we position ourselves to exploit any opportunities that come our way, and that's very relevant. I'm sure many of the people who have spoken to you before would have said things like that. And whatever hand we're dealt in life, and we're all dealt very different hands in life, is that we, you know, take advantage of whatever hand we're dealt. And I think the honest and open thing for me is just that you can say that you did your best, that whatever comes your way, that you were honest enough and you did your best. So how come 18 years at one club? Well, one could argue that 18 years is a tremendous amount of loyalty. I'm sure there's many people in this room who have spent probably longer at the same company. And, you know, in sport, and in professional sport, and in particular in rugby, you know, is loyalty enough? Well, I would argue that, you know, it's absolutely not enough. I mean, I often use, you know, I was at Wasps because I wanted to position myself to be a winner, to be the best. But if I felt I wasn't getting what I wanted out of my career, I would have moved on. There's no doubt about it. I would have left. And it's easy for me to say that because I didn't have to, but you know, you have to be ruthless enough to look at what you're getting out of your career and say, well, actually, have I positioned myself in the right place? Am I happy?